What's up, spectators? Welcome back to another episode of Ace Attorney Investigations 2. Last time we had a very brief interrogation with Blaze, but using evidence and bloodstains, we deduced that the criminal, the culprit, is a member of the PIC, thanks to a recording made by that one-horned doll we found at the auction. But now Lotta Hart says she remembers something new, so let's see what she remembers. Ain't that a matter of course? I'm a bona fide journalist of justice, you know. Why is she saying you know? Somehow I feel uneasy. Y'all saying the culprit was the conductor, right? That means the victim was a customer. Now, here's where it gets a mite strange, you see? There were 11 people at the auction. When the auction continued after the incident, I went straight on over and snuck a peek down below. You don't mean... That's exactly what I mean. All 11 people were still there, present and accounted for. What? Are you sure? Sure, I'm sure. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. So it started with 11 people, and there were still 11 people after the murder. Was it a ghost? You know, Sebastian, normally a prosecutor would call that a contradiction, you know. Were there really no changes in the auction at all? Really? I'm telling ya, the auction just went on like normal. But there was one itty-bitty thing, though. What? You know those hammers you always see at an auction? Like the one that lady's using over there. An auction gavel, perhaps. That's the one! All of a sudden, I couldn't hear the sound no more. It'd been banging away just prior to it. The sound of the gavel. Does that have anything to do with the case? It's possible we never found the murder weapon for the blunt head wound on the victim. It could be the gavel was used to no, that was post-mortem, but it could have still been used. If Miss Hart's testimony is the truth, then this matter has taken a grave turn. If the victim was neither the conductor nor a customer, the very foundation of Prosecutor Edgeworth's reasoning would collapse. Justice prevails, as they say! I hope you've learned your lesson, Edgeworth. Mr. E, there really is nothing we can do. It ain't over yet. Some mysteries still remain. I have to think. If I don't, then K will be... Did you get the answer you wanted this time? Well then, a deal's a deal. Who said that? Chill out, dude. I believe it's still too early to make a judgment. There are still a few mysteries left in this case. Until we have solved them all, we cannot call this a complete victory. Isn't that right, Edgeworth? I was expecting you to shout. Hold it! Like you always do. Yes, of course. Once again, Judge Courtney has come to my aid. Well then, what is it? What sort of mysteries are left? Well, of course there's the contradiction in the autopsy report. That kind of thing? I brought her in. What's wrong? Why were we suddenly called here? Well, were you just right outside the door or something? Did someone suddenly get sick? I'll begin preparing a compress stat. What'd you call me here for? Did something happen? Dr. Young, Miss Jensen, you gave... dear lord. You have my gratitude for taking the trouble to come here. This won't take long, so please relax. Tell me what in blazes is going on. Haha, why are you laughing? Ha, of course. We called you here because something came up. Judge Courtney, just what are you planning? Bonnie Young, under the divine rule of law, please answer truthfully. There were no mistakes in your autopsy report, correct? Granny would never make a mistake. That's certainly strange. You know what? Oh my god. If there is a mistake, it'll be the order of the, you know how they said the candelabra caused the death, and then the, injury to the head was secondary? I bet it's gonna be swapped. The gavel, the missing gavel, was used as the murder weapon, and the candelabra was used after their outfits were swapped. Boom! This court has found an error in Dr. Young's autopsy report. Dr. Young, please tell the truth. Did you falsify the autopsy report? That's terrible! How can you accuse her of that? I have no idea what you're talking about. Why would I do such a thing in the first place? To protect the true culprit, of course. What you talking about? I would never do such a thing. How strange. In that case, why would there be an error in the autopsy report, I wonder? Edgeworth. What do you think? Oh, I expected you to press into her statement like you normally do. Why is she taking control of the situation and trying to help me? I don't know what her goal is, but I must play along. If the autopsy report you gave to Sebastian had been authentic, then the error should not have been there. Wait a minute, I didn't do anything. That is what we will figure out from this point on. Firstly, Dr. Young, I'd like to hear your testimony. Why do you want to hear her testimony? It'd be pointless. I will be the one who decides whether or not it is pointless, not you. There are patients waiting for us. But Granny! Anyways, we don't have time for this. Is there any way I could convince you? It's tough when I say two back-to-back words that start with the same letter. I could convince you. This is of the utmost importance. Edgeworth, Granny says she'll testify. So please try to finish this quickly. If we don't return soon, there will be people in terrible suffering. And yet you were lollygagging about on the viewing platform earlier. I promise, this won't take long. Only if she tells me the truth, of course. There are no mistakes in Granny's autopsy reports. I've been working with corpses longer than you've been alive. There's no way I'd make a mistake in writing the autopsy report. I got nothing to gain from falsifying the autopsy report. Is what she says. See? It's nothing strange at all. Yes, that's right, you know. There's no way she would falsify it, you see. Under the name of Goddess of Law, do you swear that this testimony is the truth? Granny would never tell a lie. Objection! We were asking Dr. Young. We do not need to hear from a third party. I'm not a third party. I'm on Granny's side. If you raise an objection to my testimony, you'd best prepare yourself. Ex-prosecutor. I will definitely expose the contradiction in the autopsy report. There are no mistakes. So you're saying there is no way Dr. Young could have made a mistake? Of course! Doctors can't afford to make mistakes. This is a world where just one misdiagnosis can end a long career. I know that my granny, at least, would never. If I did something like that, you think they'd still let me run a hospital? I've been working with corpses longer than you've been alive. So in your long career, you've never once made a mistake. A doctor's only as good as the length of their track record. If we're just talking about a lengthy track record, that former chief prosecutor is one too. And yet his actual abilities don't seem to measure up. I hope that you're not the same as well. Ouch! That's a low blow, you know. But you know, Edgeworth, I don't make mistakes either, you see. 'Cause you see, before I can make a mistake, those around me will have already made it instead. You see, I don't have time for mistakes. It's quite amazing, you know. It must be karma. Vaughn, karma. You can't compare a chief prosecutor with a doctor. You really can't. There's no way I'd make a mistake. The victim wore this raincoat after suffering a blow to the head. And yet there was not a single drop of blood on the front of the raincoat. Therefore, it is impossible for the head wound to have been post-mortem. Well, that's... I don't need you to tell me that. That's what I wrote down from the very beginning. Objection! The autopsy report says the head wound was post-mortem. That's completely different. Yeah. I relayed to Karen what to put down in the autopsy report. After that, it was none of my beeswax. Relayed to Karen. Please elaborate. I relayed everything to Karen. So Karen's behind this. She's the one working with whomever. I'd like to verify once again what you saw when you examined the body. Like we said. Well, about that. She was done in by a thump to her noggin. Dr. Young, do you know when that happened? Before she died, of course. The wounds on her chest were post-mortem. That's what I relayed to Karen, so that's what should have been written in the report. That's what you relayed to her, eh? I'm finally beginning to see the truth. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Where's that report? But jail! Dr. Young, please confirm what this autopsy report says with your own eyes. I'll read it out for you. This autopsy report wasn't written by me. What? What do you mean? God, they're so weird. I don't know. But Granny, I can't say that. Miss Jensen, if you're trying to keep the truth in the dark, then... In place of the goddess of law, I shall hear your confession. Judge Courtney is talking with Dr. Young in private. Is that true? Understood. I shall convey your words to everyone else, Dr. Young. I properly relayed the autopsy report orally to that child. It seems my granddaughter must have mucked it up when she was writing it down. Wow. She mimicked her voice perfectly. There was no need for her to go that far, though. In other words, the contents of the autopsy report had been falsified. By your hand, Miss Jensen. Ooh, With that, we've proven that the wound on her head came first, followed by her chest wound. Jensen, why did you falsify the autopsy report? Hold on a second. She never said she falsified it, you know. She just made a teeny tiny mistake when she wrote it down. Postmortem and antemortem sound kind of similar, you know. They are complete opposites. That is the very definition of falsification. Miss Jensen, why would you lie? I want you to tell me too. Why would you do something like that? Granny, but because you falsified the autopsy report, Kay fell under suspicion. Tell me why you did it. I can't say. I just can't say it. Not I don't want to say, but I can't say. You're all a bunch of bullies, you know. Ganging up on this poor girl who loves her grandmother so. She's totally unrelated to this. I think we can forgive her for one tiny mistake. Objection! That won't do. Aren't you the one with the most to lose if she testifies? What are you saying? You see, as a former prosecutor, you'll have to speak a little more clearly, you know. Very well, as you wish. I shall answer clearly. Miss Jensen played an essential role in the case. She was an accomplice! Miss Jensen falsified the autopsy report in order to assist the true culprit. This girl is an accomplice? What's your basis for that claim? It was impossible for a single person to commit this crime in the first place. The crime could not have been committed without at least two people, namely because... This is a tricky one. I don't think it's the report. Let's see, the victim couldn't have been moved. No, there was an elevator for that. Hold on. Number of people wouldn't match. Number of people. Oh! This is about this. Oh, this is the 11 people at the auction. That's why. That's gotta be why. If the conductor was the culprit and one of the auction guests was the victim, boom, there it is, there it is. It would contradict the witness's testimony that there were 11 people after the incident. What now? You got a problem with my testimony? Not at all. Rather, it's because I believe your testimony, that's why an accomplice must exist. So, you still won't admit that your reasoning is wrong. Up until now, we had not even considered the possibility of an accomplice. But if there had been an accomplice, it changes the entire story completely. If the accomplice took the murdered auction guest's place, then the number of people remains 11. Oh, I see now. So that's what you're thinking. But you know, wouldn't that have been quickly discovered? Miss Jensen and the victim have similar physiques. If she wore the victim's mask, she could have easily taken her place. Miss Jensen, did you switch places with the victim? I wouldn't. Who was the conductor? In other words, tell me who was the true culprit. I can't, I mean, that would also cause trouble for Granny. But Granny... I will accept whatever wrongs you may have done. Just tell me everything. Ew! Her hair is so gross! As I thought. It appears you really were the accomplice. Jensen! Why? Jensen! Remember, that's a Deus Ex reference. If I see Jensen, I can't not say it that way. Would you please tell us? It's okay, Granny. I'm fine now. I switched places with the victim, Miss Crane. So you admit to being the conductor's accomplice? Yes, I helped out the conductor. I don't really know why, but for some reason, the conductor was expecting to be attacked by Miss Crane. The conductor expected an attack from the victim. They were so sure it was going to happen that they came up with a plan to counter it. A way to beat the victim at her own game, and that's when I was called in. I was told to wait in the storeroom before the auction began. Whoa there! You ain't fooling my eyes! If you were waiting in the storeroom, I reckon I would have bumped into you. After all, I'd been up in that storeroom the entire auction. I'm telling the truth. I wonder about that, you know. Can we really believe a girl who would falsify a report? Objection! Yeah, there should have been many places to hide in that storeroom. Then by all means tell me, where did our little nurse hide? The place in the storeroom where Miss Jensen hid was... Oh, the coffin? But there was blood in the coffin. But this makes the most sense. It still doesn't explain why there was blood. Take that! She hid inside this costume trunk. Right, because the costume trunk was sealed at first. A costume trunk, eh? Now that you mention it, that box was already there before I stuck in. I figured I'd hide in there myself, but it was wrapped up nice and tight with a chain. And it was locked too, so I had to give up. I suspect that when you When you snuck into the room, Miss Jensen was already inside the trunk. Yes, it would have been bad if one of the guests from the auction had opened the lid. After instructing me to hide inside, the conductor wrapped a chain around the costume trunk. I think they went downstairs using the lift shortly thereafter. It was right before the auction. So then, when the auction began, only you and Miss Hart were in the storeroom. Yes, that should be right. The auction had been going on as usual, but when a certain participant made the winning bid, the conductor committed the crime. Miss Hart must have heard the altercation that occurred then. You betcha! I was trembling behind that there statue the whole time, though. Following the altercation, Jill Crane was murdered. After killing Jill Crane, the conductor carried her body to the costume trunk. And Miss Jensen, who had been hiding in the trunk, was made to take Miss Crane's place. The victim's body was placed inside the costume trunk. The conductor then took Miss Jensen, who had been made to look like Jill Crane, and returned to the auction hall as if nothing had happened. Was this roughly what happened in the storeroom during the incident? Yes, that's right. Pulling the old switcheroo with one of the auction guests. Ain't that impossible? That gal and the murder victim are two completely different people, you know. They wear masks, stupid! Don't you reckon one of the other participants would have noticed and caused a ruckus? No, not at all. The reason they didn't notice the switch was because... she stole the victim's clothes. But this we already know. It's a very obvious solution, or answer. But why don't we end this video here after this huge revelation? So stay tuned for the next one, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye!